So today we're going to be answering this question. And what are the main qualities of Hazrat Abbas? Because we know in our communities, whenever we are into trouble, whenever we want our prayers to be answered, we say, Ya Abbas. Even in some other religions that have known Abbas, like Christians in Iran, sometimes they even call Abbas. Even those that are not followers of Ahlul Bayt, many times they call Abbas in Iraq. So you see that Hazrat Abbas is timeless. And he is somebody that you see in the books, that there is a lot of statements about him and what he did, but how people have remembered him, how they love to go to his shrine, how much they respect his shrine is something that is, just like Imam Hussein is timeless, Hazrat Abbas is timeless. And we can say this, that he had the quality of sincerity. When someone is sincere, has ikhlas, he will be remembered. Because his Islam, his Iman will be forever. But if someone does a lot of actions, God forbid, and isn't sincere about them, and wants others instead of God, or wants the dunya instead of akhirah, or instead of God, then they will not be remembered because they wanted the dunya. So if tonight we have hawa'ij, we have things that we want answered. All of us have needs. Inshallah, this majlis will be dedicated to Hazrat Abbas and Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. But we're going to be talking about sincerity. That is the main, you can say, component that causes a true worshipper of Allah to be distinguished from other worshippers, is their sincerity. When you look about worship in terms of quality, many people have worshipped Allah a lot. Shaitan has worshipped Allah more than ins, 6,000 years. One prayer of Shaitan was 2,000 years. More than us. But is God just looking for quantity, or is quality more important? And we'll be answering this question. Then the hadith says, even if it's qalil, even if it's few, but is with ikhlas, it's way better than something that's kathir. That's a lot. And when you look at your own lives and your relationship with God, you see those things that you sincerely did for God, those things are accepted. It might even be one thing, two things, three things, but those things changed me. They changed the course of my life. Because there was something that you wanted and you sacrificed for God. And that's why this person that sacrifices and gives what they want, in one night they'll go through a path that is 100 years, because they give up what they want for Allah. And Allah is looking for that. Allah is always looking to see, do we choose Him or do we choose others? Do we choose Him or do we choose ourselves? So sincerity is a very important topic. And when you look at the life of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, the fourth Imam, you see statements even from people that were mukhalif of the family of the Prophet, people that were opponents of the family of the Prophet, people that have brought their status down. They still say that Imam Zainul Abidin, sadaqatul sir. They know that they would admit that he would feed people, give provisions secretly. That's another case of sincerity, when someone does something secretly and nobody knows. Sometimes the imams would just place their hands inside someone's house, not to show their faces, just they would see their hands. That is an act of sincerity. A lot of times when we want to do something, we boast about it, we tell them, we sometimes remind them when we get angry. And we keep telling them, look, I did this for you, or you want to show yourself. But that level of ikhlas is hard, is difficult. I'm not saying I have it. There's no way that I say I have it. I like to talk about it, but doesn't mean I have to act upon it. Inshallah, I act upon it. But in general, you see that ikhlas is one of the most important things in Islam, because intention is more important than the action itself. And just like actions have different types of levels, intention also has multiple types of levels. It's not as if some philosophers that say it's a good intention or bad intention. No, in Islam it's not this way. You have 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree. Ikhlas keeps going. And that action of 100% ikhlas, sometimes it can't even come from us because we're not even at that level. That 100% ikhlas happens after you go to that spiritual journey and you realize and have true ma'rifat of Allah. After then you can make that intention. So don't try to say I'm going to have 100% ikhlas, because we don't even analyze ourselves to see when you really open your intentions and see, even tonight, why did I come here? Right now, so why did I come here? There might be other things mixed. That's a type of shirk, right? One person might say, I came here, I like the tea a little bit. I like when they, one of the brothers isn't here to make the tea, so you're going to miss out. One person, that might be inside a little bit. It might push them, might tickle them a little bit. Or someone say, oh, my friend is coming here too. I'm going to see him. I'm going to talk to him. That's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But whenever you gauge yourself, and I'm talking about myself too, it's going to be very hard to that 100% level of ikhlas to come out from us sometimes. And that's why in the hadith it says, in akhir zaman, at the end of times, if you want to be like this, don't wait and don't stop your actions for ikhlas, because you will be without actions. And stop trying to find a friend that's 100% good, because you will be without friends. So we have to be practical. We can't have that intention that the urafa and ulama, that after they worked on themselves for years, that they had. But from that level that we are at, we're trying to increase ourselves in sincerity, engage our intention more. For you to be sincere, you have to know your intentions. You have to see those da'i, those dawa'i, those causes. Like a person, for example, that gets wudu sometimes, he cools off. He's getting wudu, but he's also cooling off. He comes in the masjid because it's a little cooler, there's air conditioning, it's hot outside. He wants to pray, but he likes it, it's cool inside. So there's different intentions we have inside of us. And this nafs, this amara basu, is always perpetually pushing us towards su and evil. So this is a level, and that is one thing that the urafa and teachers of akhlaq, they would cry about. They don't know if their actions are accepted. They don't know if there's ikhlas in it. That's why we keep asking Allah to accept, because we don't know, what if we did have other intentions in Allah? What if it wasn't accepted, our actions? They test, sometimes our ulama test it. They say when Marhum Naraqi, teacher of a great book of akhlaq, came to Najaf from Iran, a big mujtahid, a big scholar came. And we see that, I believe it's Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum was there, and he wanted to visit him. And the Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, when he went, Mullah Naraqi went to visit him, he said to him, when he came and did Salam Alaikum, imagine a great from Iran is coming to see a great from Najaf. Obviously, there's usually, amongst the ulama community, there's a lot of respect. They'll stand up and say, welcome, do you need the place to stay, do you know? So he entered the place of, I believe, Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum, I believe. And then Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum didn't give him attention at all. He said, Assalamu alaikum. He didn't give him attention at all. And the people next to Mullah Naraqi were wondering what's going on. It's like, they said, okay, he didn't give me respect. It's okay. Then they said the next day, next time, again, let's go meet him again. And they're wondering, wait a minute, you just went and visited him, and he didn't give you the respect that you deserve. You want to visit him again? He said, no, Sayyid Mahdi Abbas. He said, oh, let me go visit him. He's a great alim. Again, he goes and visits him, and same, almost disrespect. He didn't respect him like Mullah Naraqi has come here. So again, people were like, what's going on? Why isn't he giving him respect? He's not a normal talaba, not a normal student. Then he says, again, I'm going to be leaving back to Iran. Let me visit him one more time. He's an alim, Sayyid, Mushtahid. Let me visit him. They said, they stop him now. They say, are you sure? Because he's not giving you the respect you deserve. You want to see him 3 times, for example? And he said, no, Abbas, he's good. He's good. He's good. I want to see him. When you have love and respect for mujtahid, You don't care, when somebody is at that high level, you don't care if he disrespects you or respects you or gives you. You want to benefit from his light. You want to benefit from his nur. And then the last time said Mahdi Bahrul Ulum comes without shoes. He comes without shoes and comes and does istiqbal and meets him and hugs him and says that, oh, I was testing you. I was testing you. I wanted to see in your book of akhlaq, for example, you wrote about sincerity. Did you practice it yourself? I wanted you talked about af and forgiveness. I wanted to know, did you practice af yourself, forgiveness yourself? For example, you talked about takabbur and arrogance. I wanted to see, do you have arrogance yourself or not? And however much you can say, I shook you, I only saw purity in you. And I tested you. And Mullah Naraqi was pure. He had ikhlas. He didn't come to see this alim so that everyone can say, wow, mashallah, look at me, look in Najaf, everyone's looking at me. Now they respect my knowledge, I'm an author, a mushtahid too. No, even if he almost mistreats him, you come and see him, because that's what a person has ikhlas. That's when a person doesn't really have an ego. They say in akhlaq, from our akhlaq teacher, we learn, he would say that don't bother people and don't get upset yourself. Then they said that, I believe it's from Sheikh al-Khudaki, I believe. And they asked him, okay, I cannot bother people, that's easy. I'll choose not to bother them. I'll be quiet. I won't talk too much. I won't say something offensive. That's easy. For the ulama, that's easy. I won't offend them. But how can I not be upset? And he answered the Arif, he said, do not presume that you're something. Do not think that you're something. If you think you're something, you're going to get offended. If you see yourself as nothing, then you'll not get offended. Mullah Naraqi saw himself, even though he wrote all these books and was a mushtahid, he didn't see himself as nothing. So he wasn't offended. So you see that ikhlas is so important that many times we see when it comes to masjid work, sometimes things don't go our way and you get upset and you say, I don't even want to work here anymore. I don't even want to help anymore. So what happened to your ikhlas, brother or sister? What happened to your ikhlas? If it was for God, why are you upset? As our ulama say, we should be looking for the result. We should be looking for the walifa, for the obligation that we have. The result is in God's hands. So when you look at ikhlas and you see the ikhlas of Hazrat Abbas, that he had no hesitation, that whenever Imam Hussein alayhi salam told him to do something, he never had hesitation. Without 1 second. Maybe you'll tell someone something, they're going to say, oh, okay. But whatever was the will of Imam Hussein was the will of Hazrat Abbas. Go bring my children water. Yes. Whatever, did you be my flag bearer? Yes. We will fight in Ashura. Yes. There's no reservation of Hazrat Abbas. It's just pure sincerity. 100%. I was thinking about this topic today, that how does a person increase, why is a person doesn't have ikhlas, first of all? Why do you think someone doesn't have it? I was just thinking about it myself, because they haven't come to know God. If we knew God how He truly was, would we not have ikhlas? Or is it because we think He's something else? We bring His status low. We don't think He's Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. We don't think He has complete power over this universe. Therefore, we want others to praise us. That is what, when ikhlas means, the definition, you wish that nobody praises you. You're not looking for the praise of anybody else. Even if somebody, the entire masjid community, they're upset with you, but you know what you are doing is with Quran and Sunnah, then you have ikhlas. Because we haven't realized who God is, that is why we don't do things for Him. If you were to fall in love with God, would you do actions for other than God? No. When somebody is in love, all they do is what their ma'shuq wants. That person that they love, or that being that they love, all they do is they're following them. So because we haven't realized our relationship with God is so weak, it becomes for us game. Coming to masjids, doing salat, Islam is nice, but we might not have that ikhlas. Because we haven't realized who God is. We haven't realized how precious this relationship is with Him. That is why that munajat shabaniyah and those du'as we have from Ahlul Bayt, all you see is ikhlas. You only see sincerity from Ahlul Bayt. From enemies of Ahlul Bayt, you do not see sincerity. You do not see, you see darkness. Imam Ali alayhi salam, I believe is this dua. I was once in a Qom, talking to an institute I was going to present for them. He says that, it's a satellite station. They said that, this person, Adam, does a lot of work with Christianity and Islam. He has authored many books. He compared different things, how to raise children in Christianity, how to raise them in Islam. Different, the family structure in Islam, the family structure in Christianity, he compared it. He said sometimes we would have guests from Europe, priests that would come to Qom to visit because there's a dialogue, alhamdulillah, with the seminary of Qom or the Vatican or other places. So I'm talking about sincerity. And he presented to this priest or this religious Christian person, religious person, he presented him some of the du'as of Ahlul Bayt, of the family of the Prophet. He presented to him one of the lines, I believe, in Munajat Sha'baniyah from Imam Ali, that if you put me in the hellfire, I will proclaim, I will do i'lam, that anni uhibbuk or inni uhibbuk, that I love you, God. If you put me in the hellfire, I will tell everyone I love you, God. And he says he read this and he didn't see anything like it before in Christianity at all. And he began to cry. He began to cry because that level of sincerity they haven't seen. How can you punish a person? How can you burn a person? And at the same time to cry to God and say, I love you still. For us, it seems impossible. Because when you get hurt and you haven't done anything, how can you still say, I love you, God? What you do, I'll tolerate it. Maximum, I won't say anything. Maybe I say, I deserve it. I'm a sinner. But at that time of punishment, and you know how the punishment of hellfire is, it is only Ali ibn Abi Talib who had this sincerity to say that God, in this dua, if you place me in the hellfire, I will still say I love you. It is only him that reached that high level of sincerity that he doesn't do actions because of fear of hellfire or the reward of heaven. He only does it for God. That's the highest level of ikhlas. To be honest, do we ever do things for that reason? It's so hard. When we do Salat Fajr, who here does it because, oh Allah, I love you in the morning, the alarm clock comes off, I love you, I love you, I love you, or is it, I'm afraid of you, I'm afraid of you, I'm afraid of you? Is it, do we do Salat al-Fajr mainly because we're afraid when we're sleeping? And then our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad al-Mushtay, says most of us, because we pass out of worship of God right when that Salat Fajr over, we sleep, get knocked out, we sleep because from khawf min Allah, from the fear of God, we sleep right away. So you see that these topics we're talking about, it's very hard as someone that is insincere to talk about. But we're talking about the mukhlasin, those that have sincerity, and those that in the Quran is, shaitan can never affect them. Shaitan can never change the mukhlasin, those that have ikhlas. And we have to question everything that we do, every action we do. They're very careful of our intentions. Even when we talk to somebody, why do I talk to him? Why do many things, even I'll tell you when it comes to ikhlas, even joking, Marhum Ayatollah Shahabuddin Ashir Najafi, big alim. He would, even when he's joking, he would joke a lot. I have a lot of his jokes, they're very fun. I can't say it now, but he has a lot of jokes that he would make people laugh. But then he would say, the good thing about joking, we joke just to joke, right? You joke to have a good time. But he says, joking, it's good because it brings you humbleness. Because he was a marja mushtahid, and everyone was like this to him. He would joke, why? To make himself humble. Even his joking was fi sabilillah. Even joking. So that people wouldn't, for his own nafs, so people wouldn't think that, he's this huge alim in himself. One of the scholars, he had a wife, that his wife was horrible to him, mistreated him, abused him. Once I say these stories and someone came to me and said, Sheikh, you're teaching people to stay in abusive relationships. I was like, no, I'm just saying this to the teachings of the ulama in their life. If you want to tolerate abuse or not tolerate, that's up to you. I'm not saying, but some of the ulama, they were abused by their wives. Just how there are some wives that are abused by their husbands. But this alim said, I bless her, I do dua for her. Because every time I go outside, everyone's like, Ayatullah this, alim this. But when I come home, she brings me all the way to this low level. And I pray her for that. So I don't have kibr, I don't have ujb anymore. Everyone kisses my hand outside. Maybe there I get a few sandals and pots and pans thrown at me, for example, or something. But I like her, I do dua for her. Why? Because she's balancing me. Imagine every day you go out and everyone's praising you and saying, MashaAllah, do dua for me. You're such a good person. Then at home, your spouse will abuse you a little bit, then you make dua for them. So everything that the ulama did, especially those that had ikhlas, because they're students of the imams, is with ikhlas, with purpose. Their harakat was worship. Whatever they did was for God. When their sukut, whenever they were quiet, was for God. Whenever they spoke, it was for teaching. So let's look at some of the hadith we have about ikhlas. Al-ikhlas ghayatud deen, Imam Ali, mukhlisin, as the Quran says, those that sell themselves. In the verse when it identifies Ali being at the place of the Prophet of Islam in Laylatul Mabit, when he stayed there to be all those swords that were going to come from the Prophet, they were going to kill the Prophet of Islam, and Ali stayed in the same bed as the Prophet. The Prophet left to receive those swords. And the Quran says those that sell themselves for ibtigha, mardatullah. So it's Ali alayhi salam has this ikhlas, and he says ikhlas and sincerity is ghayatud deen. Ikhlas is the peak of religion. Everything has a peak of it, but the peak is when somebody does everything for God. He's completely, sincerely for God. Al-ikhlas ibadatul muqarrabin. Again from Ali alayhi salam. Ya Ali alayhi salam, we ask you, give us sincerity, inshallah. I always tell people when you visit the ma'asumin, don't keep doing dua for dunya things. Inshallah will be resolved. Ali alayhi salam is insan al-kamil, is the perfect human being. Get that kamal and get that fada'il of Imam Ali. Get the knowledge from Imam Ali. Get ikhlas from Imam Ali. Get good akhlaq from Imam Ali. Get bravery from Imam Ali. Don't just say, oh Allah, oh Imam Ali, when you pray to them, I need a car, I need a nice car, I need a nice phone. The new model of iPhone came out. Please, I need the new model right now. Fi hadhihi as-sa'a al-an, Sometimes our dua is like this. This person went to Jam Karam. They're saying that while you're here, they said, yes, basically my sister-in-law, or she got a nice car, and I came here all day, 40 days, so I can get a nice car. We won't be behind her. We won't get left behind. So sometimes our du'as are like that. It's just for the dunya. We want Ahlul Bayt for the dunya. Al-ikhlas ibadatul muqarrabin. Al-ikhlas malaikul ibadah. Al-ikhlas a'la al-iman. Sincerity is the summit of faith. Even when we love something and we hate, now this is hard. You love things, no, you don't know. You have a favorite sports team. You have a favorite, food to eat. You have so many things you like, but it's never channeled, right? It's just whatever you like. But here in the hadith even says that love that you have and that bugh that you have is for God. Your love and hate is for God. I love someone because of God. Is anybody like this here? Anyone else is like this, inshallah? And Tamas dog, keep me in your prayers, inshallah. Tuba liman akhlas Allah amala wa ilma wa hubbahu wa bughdahu. Imam Ali again in Tuhaf al-Uqul. The others were Qurar al-Hikam. Blessed is he whose knowledge and practice, love and hate, acceptance and refusal, speech and silence, akhdahu wa tarka, wa kalamahu wa samta, wa fi'lahu wa qawla, is for God, for the sake of Allah. all of this is for the sake of God. Tuba lihem. He loves because of God. He hates things that Allah hates. Unfortunately, you see it in this day and age, many people, they're very popular. They attract the hearts and minds of the youth. But either they're singers, they're doing haram, for example, or they're preaching haram, or their lives are haram, or they're businessmen that we all respect. But in reality, they're doing something haram, not for God. They're not even mentioning God. But they captivate our hearts. They captivate our minds. But a true lover of God loves whoever God loves in the way of Allah. He might not look the best, might not smell the best, but he has deen, he has religion. And that person says, I love him more than anybody else because he worships God, he is submitting to God. Our hope, our love is for Allah. Our hatred is in the way of Allah. That is ikhlas. Or we have in hadith, al-ibqa al-amal hatta yakhlusa ashaddu min al-amal. How difficult Imam Sadiq and Al-Kafi says having ikhlas is. Sometimes you say, be sincere. Say, okay, I'm sincere already. But truly having ikhlas is something hard. And I'm saying, why we don't know? Because we don't analyze ourselves. Allah tells Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Musa, Ya Musa, ma urida bihi wajhi kafakathirun qalilu. Whatever you do for the sake of my sake, a little bit of it is a lot. Wa ma urida bihi ghayri faqalilun kathiru. And whatever you want to do besides me, even if there's a lot of it, it is still counts as little. So if you don't do things with ikhlas, then those actions will not count. There's an interesting hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that talks about those that have mastered ikhlas. Those that have so much. We said the definition of ikhlas is you wish that no one praises you. Now, somebody doesn't have to have waswas. Sometimes I saw some of the students when they entered the hawza, they have waswas. They're always thinking of riyah, showing off, and they're always hiding. They're always doing actions in private. They're afraid in riyah misha. They're always thinking it might be for somebody else. Not to have waswas. But there are those that says in the hereafter, and I read this hadith in Uddatul Da'i, verily Allah has servants, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, who sincerely engage in transaction with him in secrecy, so Allah gives him from his pure reward and goodness. There are people that in secrecy, they have this relationship with God. In the exterior, you don't know them. Exterior, they might look like a normal person. They hide it. They hide it. A wali of God is a person whose inside is better than his outside. A munafiq is a person that is outside is better than his inside. A mu'min is someone, they're equal. Outside, inside is equal. But a wali, his inside is much higher. So there's these people, they worship Allah in secrecy. Nobody knows their intentions. And then it says, so Allah gives them his reward, pure reward and goodness. For they are the ones who will come on the day of judgment with their book and deeds empty though. Why do you think their actions are empty? They're good people. But they come and their list of deeds are zero. Oh, no, they're good, they're good. It says this, they're zero. Is that a question? Yes? No. They're good people. It's empty. But it says the reason is this, that, and when they stand in front of God, their books will be filled with the secrets they had with him. In front of others in the day of judgment, their book of deeds is empty. But when they stand with God, it's filled. It says, then Mufaddal narrates, I asked him, oh my master, why will their books be empty? Mufaddal ibn Salih asked him also, why will they be empty? They're good people. He says, the Imam replies, Allah holds them in such high regard that he does not even want the guardian angels to be aware of what is between him and them. Even the angels don't see. Nobody sees it's empty. He comes empty. Everyone says, look at this person. He's badbacht shuda. He's bichara shuda, for example. He doesn't have anything. Then when it comes to him and God, it's full. Because he has so much sincerity. And this worship was so much as a secret between him and God. He didn't want anyone to know. On the day of judgment, Allah even hides it from his angels and only shows them. So there are those that we will be left behind in the day of judgment, will understand. The day of judgment will be left behind. There are those that they are working so sincerely for Allah, pleasing Him, always with tears, always with remembrance. And the secret of this, all of this, brothers and sisters, the secret of all of this is hubb Ali alayhi salam, love of Imam Ali, love of Ahlul Bayt. Because they are the mukhlaseen, the love of the Prophet of Islam. Teaching our kids these holy names, these holy figures, these names that Adam alayhi salam said, from Prophet Adam, from Prophet Musa alayhi salam mentioning them, mentioning Ali alayhi salam. Jesus alayhi salam mentioning Imam Ali alayhi salam. They are the mukhlaseen, they are the highest. Prophet Muhammad, Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Lady Fatima. If you love them, I believe truly that everything else will be, washed out, because you have loved the sincere one. When you love the sincere one, you start to become like the sincere ones. You start to see, wow, Ali alayhi salam, how sincere was he? How complete was he? You start to become like Ali. You don't even think about it. You start to become, if you truly love him. If you truly love him. And we said again over and over, why do we choose others than God? Because we haven't understood Allah. We haven't understood the worth of this relationship. Or else day and night, we wouldn't do things for the world. We would just, this limited time we have, it would just be knowledge and worship. Knowledge and worship. I'm talking about myself. Knowledge and worship. We wouldn't do other things. That is a sincere person. That is some person has ma'rifatullah, that they truly understand who God is. They will give their whole life for God. Ayatollah Mar-Ashin Najafi, after collecting books, some of them by getting money to do paid salat. It's called salat istijari, that you get money in doing salat for someone that has passed away. Some of the books, I went to his library, it said that he purchased this book while he was hungry. Well, he hasn't eaten, but he gives his money for food, for knowledge. And he collected an entire library that is probably the third largest Islamic library in the world. One person, not a library that belongs to a city, not a library that belongs to a country or king. One person that wasn't even wealthy. He slowly and slowly and slowly collected all these books. Some of his books are worth, they're handwritten, some of them, are worth a home. You can sell it and buy a house with it. And he has, he even taught Najaf. When I went there. They were teaching Najaf the way to preserve books, to make sure they're clear again, to preserve them, to reprint them. They were even teaching the library in Najaf, the same methodologies to preserve books. Books from Shia, books from Sunni, books, I think when we were there was a book from Fakhruddin al-Razi, possibly even his own handwriting. Saying books that he had, that he was a master, so he would go and find these books handwritten, and he collected them. But then they said they had a dream of him, that Ayatollah Mar-Ashin Najafi became shaheed, that he had the position of a shaheed, of a martyr. And they said that is because when he died, his entire books that were worth, priceless, his entire library, he gave it to the Muslimi. He didn't keep it for himself. He gave this charity, things that he loved so much, each book. Maybe he wanted his son to have it. Maybe he wanted his grandchildren to have it. Maybe he wanted, his friends to have it. But everything he gave to everybody. The library, that each one was worth an entire house. So he became shaheed. Why? Because a shaheed does what? They give what they love the most, their life. They gave in the way of God, their life. And he gave what he loved the most, was just his books. And he gave it, fi sabilillah. So you see that sincerity, some are like this. So we're going to end with another few other hadiths. Or actually some practical advice. How can we be sincere? And I'm telling myself this. I'm not sincere. I'm telling myself this. 3 things I advise you, my friends, from learning. One of them I said, love Ahlul Bayt. Love Ahlul Bayt. Do ziyarat Imam Hussein from afar. Cry for Imam Hussein. Cry for Ahlul Bayt. You will become sincere. Because Imam Hussein, he has the highest amount of sincerity because he gave his head for this religion. Who else do you know gave his head for religion? He gave his head. That dirt that we pray in Karbala, that is the dirt where our master's blood has shed. He gave his blood for religion. There's no higher level than this. So love Imam Hussein. He's pure. He has ikhlas. He will take you to the path of ikhlas. One is investigating our motives. If you want to see if ikhlas or not, what is my motivation? Why am I doing this? Always ask yourself, why am I doing? What if I don't? Sometimes even to speak, sometimes I say, what happens if I don't reach it? I don't come there. Or there's another person that's going to pray. There's somebody else that will speak. Or sometimes I'll say, if there's another speaker, they'll do a better job. Have them speak. Why do I have to speak? What is my motivation? Is it for me to speak all the time? Is it for me, I have to lead salah? What would happen if somebody else led salah? Maybe myself, I would enjoy it. I would like praying behind somebody else. Yeah, I would enjoy it. So see if you really like to enjoy it, or is it just about you? Right? Can you give this? Can you delegate this to somebody else? Can you give it to somebody else? Or is it just because of that position, because of that money, because of another, intention that we have, you do this action? So one, investigate your motives. Even when you go to work, you can make it have ikhlas for work. Even when you go to with your family member, you do it for ikhlas. Anything, you can make that intention fi sabilillah, and you should. 2, never wish to impress people. If you want to never be let down, lose your hope in people. Don't have hope in people. They're nice, they're good, ibadallah, but have your hope in God. People will disappoint you. You can't count on people in general. So, inna an-nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su' illa ma rahima rabbi. Your nafs always wants to impress people. If you're working out, you ever see that you try to impress people? Look at these muscles or something, exercise. Or if you have knowledge, you try to impress people. Or if you know a sport, skiing or surfing or whatever you do. I don't know if here people surf. The age limit is maybe the children, inshallah. They're trying to impress people. Always, when you're good at something, you really want someone to film you and put it on Instagram or YouTube or something. You're always trying to impress people. Stop impressing people. Stop. Don't share your knowledge. Don't always say, a lot of times they teach us in class, I know the answer, I know it. Well, what would happen if you know the answer and you don't say I know it? You're just quiet. They say this, can't confirm. That Ayatollah Bahjat came to the dars of Ayatollah Burujerdi from Najaf. Big scholar, mushtahir. And the first day he gives big ishqal to Ayatollah Burujerdi, they say. And Ayatollah Burujerdi likes him so much, that ishqal that he had, because when you do an ishqal and do objection, it means how much knowledge you have. He did it, and I think Ayatollah Burujerdi was even stumbled. And he went, they say, if it's true, I can't verify that he went and bought a house for him because he just came to Najaf. They say after that he was very quiet. in Dars anymore. He was quiet. He didn't want to show off his knowledge. He didn't want people to, not that those that do a shkal or have problems or whatever, but he didn't want to be well known or everyone to know about him. After that he was quiet in Dars because it was such a big deal. So in our culture, we always say, who knows the answer? Me. Well, what if you just say, you're quiet, and you say, do you know? Maybe not. You don't always have to praise, say, I know, let others talk. We actually, in our culture, silence is good, samt is good, being quiet is something good. Being talkative is something bad. And the last is not being afraid of difficult actions. Those difficult actions that nobody wants to do, that's where sincerity is. There are volunteer work right now here, that this masjid right now is clean. I'm sure somebody vacuumed. The trash that gets taken out, somebody took out the trash. Even the toilets, I don't think that here they hire somebody outside to clean the toilets. I don't think so. Somebody did this. There are actions that nobody wants to do, but the sincere one wants to do, and nobody knows about them. So, أفضل الأعمال أحمزها. The best of action is the most difficult of action. the best of action. It's the most bitter of actions. Not being afraid of doing that hard work. Not being, to tire yourself. We have to work so much for Islam, so much to bring back Imam Mahdi, that you faint, you get a headache, or you faint you get tired at the end of the day. You're working so much for Imam Mahdi. Because we have one chance. This is the time of occultation. We have to be active to bring him back. غِيبَتُهُ عَنَّا. His occultation is because of us. Because we were not worthy Shia. We didn't work hard enough. And I said this again, it's 15th of Sha'ban, is next week. Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, great marja, 100 years of age, apologizes and says, Imam Zaman, I am sorry that I have not come to know you. I do not know you. Even though he read the hadith about him, he read the verses about him. He says, the way that I properly should, I have not come to know you, Imam Zaman. He says, and I haven't introduced you to the world. And I haven't done a good job preparing the world for you. A marja whose life was for Imam Zaman. What about us? So we have a lot of work to do. And this is what will cause us sincerity. That work that we do for Ahlul Bayt, for the masajid, for the Islamic schools, for ourselves. We have to work tirelessly, inshallah, to bring back our Imam, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to give us, inshallah, the ikhlas that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam had, especially Imam Zayn al-Abidin and Hadrat Abbas, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to forgive our sins this month of Sha'ban, to forgive us in this month of Sha'ban, and with the days that remain. Oh Allah, allow us to do munajat al-Sha'baniyah. Allow us to do salawat of Sha'ban. Allow us to praise Allah and be like our Rasulullah, that yad abu, during this time, fi qiyamihi wa siyamih, that during such a month he would worship Allah and that he would fast in this month. Give us, inshallah, fasting and worshiping of you, Allah, this month. Cure the sick, Ya Allah. Some children I know, they're newborns. Their parents said, do dua that they recover. Ya Allah, cure all the sick, inshallah. All of those that have passed away from your family members, inshallah, all the mu'mineen, bless their souls, inshallah. Ya Allah, expedite the return of Imam Zaman and allow us to be of his companions. Let's recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Do we have any questions? I will be here. If you have any questions, time allows me. I also have office hours, that there's emails that you can on Zoom schedule a time period if you have questions or about ahkam, fiqh, if I know the answer, and you can schedule it. I believe it's on Mondays and Wednesdays. Sometimes if I'm busy, like on a Wednesday, I'll move it to Tuesday. But there's a link, and the emails should be going out weekly. And if you have questions and you need a discussion, 15-minute, 30-minute, and while I'm here, also you can ask. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We're going to be benefiting from the recitation for Hazrat Abbas, right?
Inshallah. مجددا برای سلامتی علمای اسلام صلوات. عجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. تو آمدی برسی بر مقام سرداری، تو آمدی برسی بر مقام سرداری، که خون سرخ خدا با شما شود یاری. تو آمدی که به اذن خدا به دست خودت خدا گره بگشاید ز کار بسیاری باب الحوائج. تو آمدی که بشر، دلت اینجاست، تو آمدی که بشر از شما بیاموزد برادری، ادب ورزی و وفاداری. تو آمدی که بشر از شما بیاموزد برادری، ادب ورزی و وفاداری. شما که اید آقا، شما که اید که یعقوب در تمام عمر ندیده است شما را به هیچ بازاری. به به آقا جان، ای قمر منیر بنی هاشم، شباهتی است میان تو و پدر آقا، که یک دم از دو دم ذوالفقار کراری. بدون بودن تو این جهان کسی کم داشت، تو آمدی که به معنا رسد علمداری. ستاره ها همه انگشت در دهان گفتند، ستاره ها همه انگشت در دهان گفتند که ماه روی زمین پا نهاده انگاری. فرات قطره ای از آب مشک تو بود است و القمه که به عشق شما شده جاری. خدا رسانده تو را بر مقام سرداری، که خون سرخ خدا را خودت کنی یاری. حالا در شأن باب الحوائج، عبدالصالح قمر منیر بنی هاشم ابوالفضل عباس علیه السلام، اجماعاً یک صلوات محمدی برای شادی دل حضرت زهرا، صلوات دوم رو قرارتر بفرمایید. عجل برای شادی دل خودتون به صلوات قرارات بفرمایید. حالا برای اینکه جشن میلاد قمر بنی هاشم رو شور بیشتری بدیم، یک کف مرتب باید همراهی کنید با من دیگه. من مولودی خون نیستم، کمکم کنید. اون جایی که میگم تکرار کنید تکرار کنید. پسر شاهدی عشقم از شما بگید. پسر شاهدی عشقم، احسن. امیر مهجبی عشقم، توی رویای من عشقم. یل ام البنین عشقم، 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 عشقم. یل ام البنین عشقم، 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 عشقم. تمام عشقی کلام عشقی، تمام عشقی کمال عشقی. امام زاده ای اما امام عشقی، امام زاده ای اما امام عشقی. ای علمدار یا ابوالفضل، بی حاجت نباشی یا مولودی این آقایان عزادارشون همشون یکیه، همشون حاجت روا میکنن. تا زمانی که دل حضرت زهرا رو شاد کنید از این خاندان میتونید استفاده کنید در دنیا و آخرت. و انشالله همه با هم محشور بشیم دست از سفره قمر بنی هاشم. یا ابوالفضل یا ابوالفضل یا ابوالفضل یا ابوالفضل یا ابوالفضل و پسر شاهدین عشقم پسر شاهدین امیر مهجبین توی رویای من عشقم یل ام البنین عشقم 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 یل ام البنین عشقم جانم آف نزنید دیگه تمام عشقی کلام عشقی تمام عشقی کلام عشقی امام زاده ای اما امام عشقی ای علمدار یا علمدار یا جانم یا ابوالفضل ساقی نشأتین بگو ساقی نشأتین عشقم امید زینبین عشقم جبروت علی عشقم ملکوت حسین عشقم 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 ملکوت حسین عشقم 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 ای سر مستور ای نصر منصور ای ستر مستور ای نصر منصور توی ماه نورون علا نور توی ماه آل الله نورون دل همه به زلفت گرفتار ای علمدار یا ابوالفضل یا ای علمدار بگو یا احسن یا دلت کربلا باشه توی اصل جنم عشقم توی اصل جنم توی لوح و قلم آرزوی دلم عشقم آبروی علم عشقم 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 آبروی علم عشقم 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 در صدف تو اصل شرف تو در صدف تو اصل شرف تو کلید داره حرم شاه نجف تو ماه عالمی در شب تار ای علمدار یا ابوالفضل یا ابوالفضل ای علمدار یا جانم توی ماه منیر عشق توی ماه منیر توی مرد مسیر عشقم، توی نعم الامیر عشقم، ای امیر کبیر عشقم 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 عشقم، ای امیر کبیر عشقم. شیر دلاور بازوی حیدر، شیر دلاور بازوی حیدر، با این همه آقایی الله اکبر، مرا در آستانت نگهدار. ای علمدار یا ابوالفضل، یا ابوالفضل، ای علمدار یا ابوالفضل، یا ابوالفضل، یا ابوالفضل. عجب حلوای قندی تو، امیر بی گزندی تو، عجب ماه بلندی تو که گردون را بگردانی، عجب حلوای قندی تو، امیر بی گزندی تو، عجب ماه بلندی تو که گردون را بگردانی. ابو فاضل بگو، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، تو وجه الله را وجهی، تو صار الله را جانی، ولی الله را نوری، یل شاه مردانی. تو وجه الله را وجهی، تو صار الله را جانی، ولی الله را نوری، یل شاه مردانی. عجب حلوای قندی تو، امیر بی گزندی تو، عجب ماه بلندی تو که گردون را بگردانی. ابو فاضل بگو، ابو فاضل، ابو فاضل، فاضل. صلی الله علیک یا عبد الصالح ابوالفضل عباس. السلام علیک یا سائر شهداء کربلا. السلام علیک یا مظلوم ایها الشهید سید ابن علی علیه السلام. یا سیدنا و مولانا، انا توجهنا و استشفعنا و توسلنا بک الی الله و قدمناک بین یدی حاجاتنا یا وجیه. عند الله یا وجیها اشفع لنا. خدا شاهده من خودم عرض می‌کنم دنبال بهانه هستیم، حالا چه مجالس عزای اهل بیت، جشن اهل بیت، نمیدونم هرچی، که یه جوری حال هوامون عوض کنیم، یه خورده از این نور وجوده، نور پاک و الهی اهل بیت علیهم السلام، آیت الله هایی که واقعا وجودشون این معصومین بزرگوار برکت و نعمت برای ما هست، یه خورده زندگیمون نورانی کنیم با ذکر یاد این بزرگان. اون احتیاج به این مراسم ما نداره، برای اینکه انشالله توی این مسیر هم خودمون، هم بچه‌هامون، فرزندانمون، نسلمون، همه خادم اهل بیت، پیرو واقعی باشن. صلوات قهرمان. وعجل الله في فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاده وعلى العباس بن علي أخ الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا فامن الوجاج يا علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى يا أبا الحسن يا شمس الشموس يا أنيس النفوس مدفون برز كوس يا إمام الرؤوف ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبو صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك. الأمان 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 من الفتن زمان ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن